Welcome back to more political chatter. In this video, we will be talking about the 2023 gubernatorial elections. There are three elections being held this year. It's September 4th today, and I don't know exactly when election day is, but of course, early November. So we only have a couple months, a few months, September, October, 2 months to go, basically, almost on the dot. And we have three elections in three states, of course, very important for these three states. And we've got to analyze these because, um, because, at, you know, they are all at least a little competitive, especially Kentucky and Mississippi. Um, with that being said, let's just get an overview of right now. In Kentucky, the Democratic Governor Andy Beshear is running for re-election. Remember, this is a state where Donald Trump won by 35%. It is usually a safe Republican state, but not so much on the gubernatorial level. And Republican Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General, is challenging Beshear. In Mississippi, we have incumbent Governor Tate Reeves, who's a Republican, pretty unpopular, uh, is running for re-election. He's being faced by Democrat Brandon Presley, who has gotten lots of national attention. Lots of people like him and want him to win, especially because of Tate Reeves' unpopularity. And then we have Louisiana, where we have the incumbent Democratic governor, John Bel Edwards, who's term limited and cannot run again. And this is a state with runoffs, so the top two candidates will get into a runoff. But the main Republican running in at least the first round is the Attorney General, Jeff Landry. And then we have Democrat Sean Wilson running also. And then we'll get to it, but there are a lot more other Republicans that might that could make it into the runoff with Jeff Landry. Jeff Landry will definitely get in, and it's kind of a fight between all the other Republicans and Sean Wilson to see who could get into the general. But starting with Kentucky, again we have Democrat Andy Beshear running against Daniel Cameron, the Republican. Um, this one used to look like it was going to be a lot closer. So before, especially before last year's midterm elections, we saw that, we thought that Republicans were going to do pretty well in 2022, and that meant 2023 also because, um, Biden being unpopular, National Democrats being unpopular, and that would hurt Democrats, especially in a very Republican state like Kentucky. However, Democrats were very underestimated in the midterm elections, and it's looking more like Andy Beshear is on a very clear path to victory in Kentucky. I mean, obviously he won renomination by, that's duh, but especially after this Republican primary where Daniel Cameron is the Attorney General in this state, and he was endorsed by Donald Trump in this primary, and he got so many other notable endorsements, many from Kentucky itself. Um, and he was like the first candidate by far to announce his candidacy. And as the Attorney General, as by far the biggest name running, this kind of should have been a presumptive nominee kind of situation here, but it really was not at all. And Daniel Cameron faced a very, people were actually thinking it was going to be a lot closer, but this was not a presumptive nomination. He did have to fight for this a lot. He did not even win half of the primary votes. With all the other candidates' votes, he would have lost going to one person. So that was kind of the start of, this race might not be as close as we thought. Beshear might be favored here. Then we get to polling, and Yeah, polling has been very good for Democrats throughout this race. In January, Bashir was up by 9. In May, he was up by, in a Republican poll, 2%. In another Republican poll, it was tied. In another Republican poll, he's up by 10. In a Republican poll. That's insane. That is a poll from the Kentucky Republicans. And then in a Democratic poll, he's up by 18. So, I mean, what we see here is that Daniel Cameron cannot even win a single poll. I mean, Brandon Presley can at least win one single poll, and we'll get to it. Daniel Cameron can't even win a poll when 3 of the 5 have been conducted by Republican organizations. So that's not a good sign. And as we head into Election Day, there's no reason why this should narrow up. I mean, it's not like Democrats are going to do anything in these 2 months that will shift this race so much to the right. They won't do something so unpopular. And it's not like there's going to be some huge scandal. Andy Bashir is an extremely likable and popular guy nationwide, and in Kentucky. I mean, national Democrats are trying to recruit him to run for president in 2028 after Biden. He would be a very strong candidate. I mean, that's just the thing. Andy Bashir is a very strong candidate. He would win those critical suburban moms. That's how he won in 2019 when he was first elected. Daniel Cameron, meanwhile, I don't think is that strong of a candidate when compared to Bashir. He's just not as likable. Um, I don't think he's as good with messaging as Bashir really is. I mean, because when you look at it, all he's running on is like that Kentucky is a red state and that Andy Bashir is a Democrat. That's it. That really doesn't work a lot of the time. And we have to remember, so many, uh, Kentucky Republican voters are still Democrats. I mean, it was only, I think it was last year that Republicans finally took over Democrats in terms of party affiliation in Kentucky, which is insane to think about. But at the end of the day, I think these polls are mostly accurate and that Kentucky goes likely Democrat. I think Andy Bashir wins by 5 or 6% in the state of Kentucky. I mean, honestly, upwards of 10%. We could honestly see Andy Bashir win by double digits, and I'm not kidding at all. Let's move on to Mississippi now. So here we have again Tate Reeves, and Brandon Presley in a matchup. I mean, Tate Reeves is not all that popular, but we do have to keep in mind here that it's not like he is so underwater. I mean, I think he's like even right, or no, I think he's like a point underwater, which, when you look at Biden in Mississippi, what's Biden down? So much. I don't, probably 35 or something. I don't know. But it could be a lot worse for Tate Reeves when it comes to his popularity. And I think that the fact that Tate Reeves is not considered, I mean, like the worst governor in Mississippi history by Mississippi voters, I think that that will come into play later on and would prevent a lot of Republicans and independents from voting for Brandon Presley. Um, but I mean, both candidates won their primaries very easily. Um, Looking at polling here, it's not looking good for Brandon Presley. But of course, Brandon Presley is the one who could gain, but he really hasn't been throughout this race. In December 2022, it was a 7-point race. In January, it was a 4-point race. It was really close at the beginning of the year. And then a Democratic poll showed him up by 4. And then an independent poll had Tate Reeves up by 7. This is in March. This is when it starts to not look very good for Brandon Presley. He's down by 11 in this independent poll. Now down by 3 in a Democratic poll. That's when people thought, that was when people were starting to think that it was really over for Brandon Presley. In a Republican poll, he's down by 17%. In a Democratic poll recently, tied. And then now this confirmed people's beliefs on. So on social media, people are just done really hoping that this race, that Democrats at least, are done hoping that this race could be close. This independent poll, very trusted, I might add, by the way, he's down by, 11% again. So, polling, people were really excited about this race when Presley was down only 5 or 4%. But now it's not looking so good when Brandon Presley had so much to gain throughout this race and he has only lost support. He started off 5 points behind, and then now in this was at the end of August this year, he's now down by 11. So, his messaging has not been as good as people were thinking it would. Obviously he is a very exciting candidate, but that's mostly just people who don't live in Kentucky. It's not like Brandon Presley has this giant war chest of money, of cash, that he could use. He is not some wealthy man. He can't use this for TV ads. Most of his fundraising is coming just from, normal everyday people. Again, mostly from outside of Mississippi. He doesn't have, big donors. Especially now, since he's not gaining at all in this race. Maybe he did in the beginning of the year, but really not anymore. So he's going to have a very hard time, and he really hasn't been as powerful as I thought he would. And I don't know how much further he could get. And I honestly was considering this race being, tilt Democrat at one point. I really thought that Brandon Presley, being himself, being the cousin of Elvis Presley, could excel, but he just has not been. So I'm thinking Tate Reeves wins by just about the same margin that Andy Beshear does, 5 or 6%, really. But this could very easily be a lean margin state. But honestly, I think it's safest to call it likely at this point. So in Louisiana, I'm going to give my margin for the second round, the runoff. So basically, again, they hold runoffs. We have Jeff Landry as the main Republican in this race, and then, I thought polling was a lot closer than this. But anyway, the first round of voting really won't make any difference at all, it's looking like, because Jeff Landry is at 36%. Sean Wilson is at 26%. An independent, wow, is at 7%. No idea who this guy is. But yeah, it's definitely looking like it's going to be Sean Wilson versus Jeff Landry. So my prediction here, this margin, will be the runoff, will be the second round of voting, because that's all that matters. And once you have a Democrat and a Republican after the runoff, all these Republicans might take away from Jeff Landry. But once you get through that and it's Jeff Landry versus Sean Wilson, that's a safe Republican state. Trump won it by so much, I think more than 40 points in 2020. So it's not like we're going to see this be competitive at all. So yeah, that wraps up this video, I guess. I think that Andy Beshear wins by a likely margin in Kentucky. That's a hold for Democrats. In Mississippi, I think that Tate Reeves wins by a likely margin. That's a hold for Republicans. And then I think that Republicans flip Louisiana's gubernatorial seat. Of course, we have John Bell Edwards, a Democrat, currently holding that seat. So thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. And yeah, subscribe. I'm so close to 1,000, so get me there, please. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. And I will see you all next time.